Hi, and welcome to another art journaling video. I'm Natasha and I love to use my artwork as a way of praying and exploring the Bible. And today I'm working in my A6 journal, which opens up to A5 side. And I started this journaling page after doing some Bible study on Acts 1. And I decided to read the book of Acts from the beginning, chapter by chapter. And I was just really struck in that very first chapter on how much there is mention of prayer and how much the disciples' lives centered around prayer. And this really resonated with me because I'd heard a sermon the previous week on prayer and the importance of prayer, and also been at an event where the speaker had spoken quite a lot about how prayer should be the centre of everything that we do as Christians. So I decided to jump in my journal and get those thoughts down in the form of some artwork. And I started by using a stencil and some gesso to add some interesting marks to the page. At this stage, I wasn't really sure what I was going to be doing, but I just wanted to get something down onto the blank page. And gesso you'd normally use to prime a page ready for acrylics, but it also creates a bit of texture, not quite as much as if you were using a textured paste. It still leaves a texture on the page, which when you then add inks or watercolours to it can create some quite interesting effects, which is what I do a little bit later on in the video. So whilst I'd been waiting for the gesso to dry on my page, I'd been looking through at some different images to decide what I'd like to include in my journal, and I had come across this image from a bag that I'd got on holiday at St Michael's Mount, which is in Cornwall in the UK, and I used a method using packing tape to remove that image from the bag. I'm going to link a video below to Jenna Burns' YouTube channel where she's got a really good video on how to do this in quite a lot of detail. But it essentially just lifts the ink from whatever image you use so that you just get the outline. And it works really well if you've got a lot of clear sort of white space on the image. And this is the bag that it originally came from. And I was really drawn to it because of the cross that you can see in the middle, which isn't intended to be a cross. It's meant to be windows, I think. But, you know, the beauty of using found images is that you can find things everywhere that might just fit with the theme. And because I was thinking of prayer and how prayer should be the centre, the foundation that we work on, this image just really jumped out at me of this castle on the hill with the cross sort of signifying prayer and Jesus and God sort of over everything. And it was from that then that I started to get the idea as to what I might create on this page. So I then added some water to the page and then some acrylic inks, and as you can see, because the gesso has now fully dried, when you start to add the acrylic ink, that pattern is revealed underneath and it just creates a really interesting effect. And I was using some acrylic inks. They're De La Rooney ones, which give a really nice quite deep pigment, and I'd chosen some really bright colours that I just pulled out of my stash. I was using a fluorescent pink and a violet and then a yellow ochre as well, and I just added those to the page. And as I was adding those to the page, I was thinking about the different types of prayer, different ways in which we can pray. The sermon that I'd heard had really challenged us to think about spending time in prayer, and that actually we can all find time to make a quick cuppa. So actually we can find time to pray, even though sometimes we might think we don't have time. We often think we have to sit down for hours and hours, or say certain prayers or special prayers, and actually the idea was that prayer can be done anywhere and at any time and takes many different forms. I then used a black pencil to draw in the outline of a hill and started to fill that hill in with some different collage materials that I had, and most of these were just found papers, like the doilies, or they are collage papers that I've made using my jelly print. And I wasn't really thinking about colours or where I was placing them. I just wanted to fill this space that is going to become the hill in with different colours and different textures. And one of the things that I was thinking about as I was doing this was the Bible verses that I'd been reading in Acts 1, and it's just after Jesus has gone, or it's just as Jesus returns to heaven after spending time with his disciples, and they don't know what to do next. They've been told to go and wait for the Holy Spirit, and they also need to choose another disciple to replace Judas. And it really struck me just how, before they made any decisions at all, they prayed. They sat down together and they prayed together. And I guess it just reinforced the importance of praying before we make decisions, praying before we go into situations, and that prayer isn't just something we do on a Sunday or that we do in an emergency, that it's something that is just part of our daily lives, and trying to find good habits of prayer so that it's something we can do easily and it doesn't feel like such an effort or something special that we have to set up a special time to do. And I think for me it was just that reminder that that prayer it's just a conversation with God. I say just, but it is a conversation with God, and that it doesn't need fancy tools or fancy things for us to be able to do it or to access it. We simply just need to come before God. And I'd pulled out some wording from I've got a box that's just got lots of words and phrases in, and I'd pulled some out that again just helped me to think a little bit more about this idea of prayer being a foundation to our lives, and picked out pray always, pray, be still, the idea of surrendering to God, dwell, and non-stop. It says that we should pray without ceasing, not stopping prayer, that it should be just part of our everyday language. So then I was just adding a little bit more colour with some Neo colour crayons and blending that with some gel matte medium, and just to add a little bit more colour, a little bit more texture, and then just adding some more marks and just building up that background for when I was eventually going to add in my image of the castle. Finally, I got the image of the castle, and I'd cut around it a little bit and was just figuring out where to place it on my page. And because it had quite a lot of white in the image, all of that sort of vanishes when you use this method, and you're just left with the outline and the very pale blue of the castle. And so I placed that on the page and stuck it down. Sometimes you do need to add a little bit more glue, but this one seemed to stick quite well. And then I just grabbed some white acrylic ink just to cover up the background a little bit, to mute down those tones, because I really wanted the castle and the hillside to be the most prominent features. So I wanted to just dampen down the background that surrounded the castle. Then I just added a few more finishing touches with some neo colours, just adding in a little bit more colour onto the hillside, and that was it. The page was complete, it felt finished, and I was really happy with how it had turned out. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope it inspires you to have a go at doing your own page. Until next time, goodbye.